Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I had an article that was sent to me that I thought was interesting when we start getting into the discussions of body acceptance, health of our population, and everything else. And this kind of goes back to what the researchers are finding doesn't match what popular culture and media is oftentimes trying to promote. And this was a study done, and this is published in Science Daily, where they're discussing what they found is that the increasing use of plus-size models in advertising campaigns, which again is supposed to give people a more realistic idea of, these are more acceptable, these are more common body types than oftentimes the waifish thin models. And the problem we get into with this is that just because something is a more common body type doesn't mean it's a good idea, healthy, or a good idea to promote. We have an obesity epidemic in the West, and this is a Canadian study, and they're having an increasing obesity epidemic there. Obesity kills millions of people every year in the United States alone. Millions. Like if you pull the numbers and look at heart disease, diabetes, and just general other things attributed to obesity, you find that these are number one killers. I mean, let's be realistic here. What do we see in the news these days? Oh, everything's about gun violence. But the reality is homicides even committed with guns are less than 1% of the amount of deaths that we see that can be tied to obesity and bad food choices and sedentary lifestyles. In other words, no matter what gets highlighted in the media with the other, you are dramatically more likely to die from heart disease, diabetes, cancer, all these things that we know are directly tied to obesity. You are dramatically more likely to die to these than you are any sort of actual violence. So where should our focus be put? This is legitimate concerns. And the problem is that these are self-inflicted. These are completely preventable. You might not always be able to stop another person from harming you, arguably. That's an arguable point. But you can certainly stop yourself from dying from an obesity-related problem, right? We get to pick and choose that ourselves. And the situation we have is that you have this whole body acceptance movement that's trying to tell people, look, it's okay to be overweight. It's okay for this to happen. Well, the problem is that they're trying to turn something as a self-inflicted disease that we know the medical research is overwhelming on this, of how deadly this is. It's overwhelming. They're trying to take a self-inflicted harm, self-harm, is being promoted as a social experiment as if it's some sort of protected minority group. Well, the problem is that it's not even a minority anymore, is it? This self-inflicted situation is becoming a very, very large segment of the population. Right? Anytime you start exceeding about 20% of a population, this is not really a protected minority anymore. This is not a true minority group at all. When you start exceeding 20% of the population, and we know obesity is well above that at this point in most Western countries. America, it's even higher. And the problem we have is that rather than pushing the other direction towards health and promoting healthy lifestyle choices, we are promoting the opposite. And what they have found at looking at the data is that seeing pretty women who have pretty faces, who oftentimes have genetics to still have a pretty face, they don't store as much fat on their face, they get face lipo, stuff like that, with an unattractive body seems to instill attitudes in young women that it's okay to overeat, it's okay to not exercise. That's what they've been looking at in the data, is that it seems to soften attitudes on that, rather than promote what they're trying to do of, hey, you need to learn to love yourself and accept yourself. It does the opposite. It promotes an idea that self-harm, that negligence and abusing yourself is now okay, because you can still be pretty, because that's what society has done in many cultures across the earth. We've promoted to women that their value comes from their appearance. No matter where you stand in the political or social spectrum, I think most of us agree that's what's been socially promoted and instilled in women in most cultures on earth, that a lot of their value comes from their physical appearance, how pretty they are, how attractive they are. Well, when we're now promoting that you can still be attractive while being horrific to your body, we are kind of going back to the point of it's okay to harm yourself and have really bad lifestyle choices as long as you're still pretty. See the problem there? This is really, really harmful to women. This is really harmful to women. And again, you even see it the other direction with some of the really radical feminists in this idea have tried to say, well, I don't need to because I don't care about getting a man. I don't need to worry about my appearance at all. I don't need to worry about my health. Well, I mean, and let's be honest here, that's insane. That's absurd. That's absolutely absurd that the only reason you would care about your physical health and your quality of life is to attract a mate. What about the intrinsic value of being healthy and feeling good and having a high quality of life? And that's the problem we have here, is that this is being tied up purely to socially acceptable appearance instead of saying, hey, this is bad for you. You know, this is as bad, and this is again what the researchers are finding, this would be as bad as if we showed really, really attractive women in billboards utilizing dangerous substances like crack cocaine. It would be the equivalent. And people say, oh, being 50 pounds overweight isn't as bad as smoking crack. Yes, it is. It absolutely is. Well, what are you talking about? Have you seen the medical literature? Health at every size is a social myth. It's not a medically supported concept. It's not true. It's not true. And it would be different when we're talking about someone who's 20 pounds overweight. Okay, yeah, we could compare someone who's 20, 30 pounds overweight with someone who is underweight, right? They will have similar levels of health problems as a result of it, because being underweight has health problems. But that's not what's being promoted. There are clearly plus size models who are 50, 60, 70 pounds over their ideal healthy body weight. The problem we have is that there's a lot of young women who are exceeding that. They're not just 20, 30 pounds overweight. They're getting very, very large. And again, the researchers are finding this just because it's being promoted as socially acceptable. It is softening attitudes further. It's not doing the intended result of just teaching them to love themselves, because letting your health go and not taking care of your body and treating your body like a dumpster isn't self-love. That doesn't boost your self-esteem. And even if it does boost your self-esteem a little bit, that's not going to stop the health problems, because that's the problem. That the social experiments we have going on in Western countries these days are always promoting the idea that how you feel is more important than objective reality. All right, and you can feel as healthy as you want and as happy as you want, but that's not going to stop you from getting diabetes. That's not going to stop your first heart attack. That's not going to stop uterine or breast cancer from harming you. All right, the way that you feel about it has no impact on objective reality. And that's the problem, is that we have gone over to telling people that it's okay to feel good about treating your body terrible, and destroying your own body. And this is not helpful to anyone. This isn't helpful to anyone. Not at all. And yes, people who are oftentimes overweight do suffer self-esteem problems. You know what? Because having self-esteem problems can contribute to obesity in and of itself. But we don't resolve that by making it socially acceptable to be obese. We don't resolve that at all, because that is not going to fix the self-esteem problem they already have. It's not going to fix the self-hatred people already have. And now we start promoting the whole idea that it's okay. So now you have people who not only suffer from low self-esteem, but they're now encouraged and being told they can still be beautiful and have value and be pretty if they harm themselves. Because that's what it is. Being morbidly obese is self-harm. It's self-harm. It's no different in that regard to people who have a suicidal or self-wound inflicting mental illness. It's no different from people who are addicted to drugs in a way that's harmful to them. It's self-inflicted harm. And it's not based upon self-love. It's not based on self-love. And it's one thing to tell people, look, it's okay to love yourself. But if we really wanted to promote this idea The idea would be it's okay to love yourself, but if you really love yourself, you will do something about your own health. You will do something about the quality of life. That you have to love yourself enough to say, I'm not being good to myself, I'm not being the best version of myself, and I love myself enough that I want to do better, that I want to be better. And that's really the take-home message that people need to have, not this health at every size, because it's not working. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.